Chris Watson, compel your audience. Thanks so much for tuning in. Today, we're going to talk about how do we communicate the three most important things to our people internally. I believe that these are probably the quintessential three things that every person that is on your team, within your organization, or maybe even just a peer that is on an executive team with you. These are the three things that they are evaluating every day, every week, every moment of a transition, especially every moment that there's a success or there's a failure, because we're always asking ourselves, can I sustain this success? Or maybe this failure is happening because I don't belong here. And I'm stealing these three things from Daniel Coyle out of the book Culture Code. Now, I've read both of his books. The first one, Talent Code, because in a former life, I was a soccer coach and a trainer, a goalkeeper trainer in the soccer world. And in doing that, I wanted to understand talent. And I learned so much about talent when it comes to what is going on inside our brain when we're actually learning a new skill. We'll save that talk for another thing, but you might look up a little thing called myelin, Myelin. It wraps around our brain, within our brain. It wraps around to basically build a whole new skill so that something becomes subconscious to us. So these are the three things. Number one, our people ask, am I safe here? And when we question that, am I safe here? The question really is this environment created where I feel like I can be me, or where there's an opportunity for me to have safety? Safety means that I can meet my basic needs. And so that is the first question that every person's asking. And you probably asked that before in your own life in a job. Am I safe here? Do I feel safe with this job that I have? Or is there a lot of volatility? Or is this volatile? Can I not trust the people that I have? The second question is can I trust those that I work with here to be vulnerable with them, to be honest with them? Do we have an environment of vulnerability and honesty? Coming from a sales background in my life, it's very difficult in that environment, or has been for a lot of years, to be very honest and vulnerable when things aren't working out. I would guess in the other departments that the same holds true, whether you're in a marketing department, human resources, development team, customer success. No one wants, and I think this is very cultural, no one wants to show a sign of weakness. No one wants to show a moment that I'm not in control, because we worry that if we were to show that we need help, that we don't have it all figured out, that might be the moment that is reflected in our development as an employee, our salary, our career path. And so do we have an environment, have we cultivated an environment where someone can feel like they can be vulnerable and honest? The third one is, do I have a purpose here? Do I have a purpose? Is what I'm doing and where I'm going with my life, do I feel like that this is just a skill that I have, or is it part of my overall purpose? Some people will talk about a purpose-driven life. So is what I'm doing here driving the purpose of my life? So those are the three things. Am I safe? Can I trust? Can I be vulnerable, honest? And is this meeting my purpose? Do I have a purpose here? So instead of talking about those to nauseam, because I don't want to, you should go check out the book. I thought it was very insightful. It's called The Culture Code. And if Daniel ever hears this, or somebody knows him, I'd love to have him on and we can talk about it in more detail. But I want to talk about, how do we communicate those things? Because it's great to know that our people need those. It's great to know that they need to feel safe. It's great to know that they want to know they can trust. And it's great to know that they feel like, hey, I want to make sure I have a purpose here. But I think it's far more important that we know how to communicate that. So that's what we're going to break down today. How do we effectively communicate that? And so I want to go back for us to go forward. I think one of the things that we saw happen with COVID, pandemic, lockdown, remote work, hybrid, virtual calls. The one thing that we saw was this glaring gap of communication. We saw that leaders were effective in the way they communicated when they were in the office with their people. We saw a gap in how do we not blur the lines of personal and professional, but we let people know that we care about them and their lives and have some empathy and have some vulnerability because everyone managed and handled this pandemic and still are in their own way. And some people managed, I guess, being isolated in their home office in their own way. And so it really called upon leaders, managers, companies, organizations. It really called on their communication skills. How did they communicate that you're safe here? How did they communicate? Listen, you can trust us with what you're going through. Please share that. How do they communicate? Hey, you have a purpose here, and we want your purpose to be aligned with what you want. So, number one, the way that we do that is the way we communicate it is to reclaim conversation. We have to get to a place where we are okay and we feel confident in having a true conversation. That conversation can be, via phone. That conversation can be virtual, but that conversation can't always go to a Slack message, to an email, to a text message, because too much is lost in translation. Now, why do we as people want to push our communication, our conversations to that messaging? Because it's easier. It takes less presence. It takes less emotional equity out of us. To have a one-on-one conversation takes me being present with you, thoughtful, being a good listener, not able to multitask. Although I've seen some people on Zoom calls and they're multitasking wildly. But in order to truly have a good conversation, I have to be present. I have to know what we're trying to accomplish. I have to be a good listener. I have to put away the distractions so that they aren't here while I'm talking to you and having a conversation. So we have to reclaim conversation in its form of talking to people. Now, I'm not saying there isn't a need for the internal memo, for a group message, for Slack, for email. There is. But we have blurred the line so much, especially during this kind of remote work, that we are choosing those forms of communication because they're simpler. There's less risk. And I think that we have to get to a place where we understand having a thoughtful conversation, reclaiming conversations and having those with people. The risk is there, but it's worth it. It's worth it. If you think about yourself and you think about the conversations that you had that were, on your birthday, where someone calls you and leaves a voice memo or a voicemail. Hey, Chris, I hope you have a wonderful birthday. I want you to know how much I love and care about you. And I hope you have a fabulous day. I'm so glad to celebrate another day or another year of life. If I get that voicemail, then I get a text message that says the same thing. We as humans will feel so much more from the voicemail than we will the text messaging. We have grown numb to text messaging. Have you ever asked yourself why emojis were created? They were to show emotion within a text message. Hey, let me make sure they know this is funny. Happy face smiling, ha ha. Let me make sure they know I mean love, heart. That's why we did it. That's why it's created. We've made it. We were trying to make it easier for people to show emotion in text messaging. But what we know is that it doesn't create the same emotion for the receiver. So for your people, you need to take an inventory to say, what messages do I need to make into conversations? Now, I know the naysayers are going to say, well, what about time, Chris? I want to be productive. What about ROI? What about 3 questions they have? Am I safe? Can I trust? And do I have a purpose? Those 3 questions can't be answered always through an email. They can't be answered through a Slack message. I will tell you, they won't be answered through those forms. There needs to be a conversation. So I'm going to challenge you to think about how can you reclaim conversation. All right, number two, what we know here at Craft and Compel, and what I know is that everybody is judging every relationship, every job, every decision that they're really making. They're asking themselves, does this help me achieve my future? So, by the way, side note, if you're in sales, every prospect is asking that question too. If you're in customer success and you're trying to retain your customers, every customer is asking that question too. They're asking themselves, does this product or service help me accomplish the future that I want, either for my business or individually? So just know everything comes down to the future story. Is this worth my time, my money, my energy? So back to your people. How do we make sure that when it comes to, do I have a purpose here? How do we make sure that we are in tune with what they want their purpose to be? What is their purpose? And that is why we have to align our work, our feedback, our development. We have to align that to the future that they desire, that they want. Now, I'm going to probably rock some ideals here for a moment. Told a story on LinkedIn recently. I had a manager at a Fortune 100 company, and I was in a sales job. And I remember the manager coming to me and him saying, "Hey, Chris, what do you want to do with your life?" And I said, "Well, I mean, I love working here, and I'd like to see myself, rise up the ranks and be a sales trainer, be a manager, take your job someday." I said all that because it was the right answer. It wasn't really what I wanted to do at that time at 24 years old. He said, "I know that's not true." And I said, "Well, how do you know that?" He's like, "I just see it in your eyes that you have other things that you want to do in life, that this isn't the thing. So what is it?" And I said, in my head, I told myself a story. Can I tell my boss right now that this isn't the job that I want for the rest of my life? Now, keep in mind, 24 for me, was almost 15 years ago. So we're talking 15 years ago where the right line was, I'm going to work here for the next 10, 15 years and rise up the ranks and run the company track and the whole bit, right? Well, I don't know why. I just trusted my gut and said, I'm going to tell him. So at that time at 24, I'd always dreamed of owning my own sports complex. I wanted to run and operate my own sports complex that we held the best soccer tournaments, the best softball tournaments, the best baseball tournaments, the best basketball tournaments indoor, the best flag football. I wanted to have a premier sports complex where we ran all that, where we had camps in the summer or in off seasons for every sport. We had the premier people coming to this, people traveling from all over the world to come to it. I told him that. And he looked at me and he said, "Great. I love that. It's exciting. I think you'll do great in that." Now, keep in mind, this is my sales manager wanting me to hit quota, wanting me to hit KPIs, making sure he hits his numbers. And he says, "I want you every time that you have a failure, someone say no, a contract not go through in your sales job, to remember that sports complex, to remember why you're doing this job, to get you to the complex." Same thing when you have success. Don't let it make you lazy. Don't let it make you stagnant. Remember what you're working towards. That was one of the most incredible conversations that I had with the manager, because I promise you I worked harder for that manager than probably almost any other. Because why? Because he aligned the job of what I was doing with my future. Now, a lot of managers out there, you may not admit it, but the truth is that because we're seeing the average job expire after 18 months. So somebody works for your company and about 18 months later, they're gone and somewhere else. I've even seen lately in some departments, people in some worlds, in industries, people there for 8, 9, 10 months, and then they're gone, and there's no one's having any issues with that. So because of that, I think that we need to be really honest about what is the future that you want. And it's okay if that future that you want isn't within our company, because I want to motivate you and I want to align the work that you're doing with our company with the future that you want, knowing that I can then help you set really high performance standards, because it's helping you evolve into who you want to become. Instead, and let me tell you what the opposite of this is, if I don't, then this person that is working for me is only going to share with me what I want their future to be. And I'm only going to develop them for this false future that they have told me. So think about that for a moment. Think about yourself. How many times you knew, yeah, I'm probably going to go take another position over here. I like this company better, this culture better, or better yet, I don't actually want to be in this role anymore. I'm looking at another role, but you couldn't tell your boss. You couldn't tell your manager. You couldn't tell your company. I'm not saying it's not scary. What I'm saying is if you want people to set high performance standards for themselves, if you want people to feel safe, to feel like they can trust those that are on their team, and to feel like they have a purpose at the organization, we have to step out and start asking people, what's the future that you want? At that moment, the more I ask that, then I can help them achieve that future, which means now we're aligned, which means that when criticism comes, they're taking that better, as well as I'm setting high performance standards for them because it's all what? Getting back to their future. The other thing my manager did was that I remember when I would have huge wins, he would send me a soccer ball. He would send me different things that would align with the goals in the future that I had. Now, he didn't know when I was going to leave. He didn't know it was going to be next year, the following year, 7 years, 10 years. He didn't know, but he aligned my actions and my job with that. Now, if someone says that their dream is to be promoted within the organization to a position that's there, that's even better, to be quite honest, because now I can align some of the actions they're doing, some of the positive things they're doing with the job function of whatever that promoted job is. So if a person says, you know what, I want to be an internal sales trainer, awesome. In their current sales role, I'm going to give them mentorship opportunities. I'm going to let them train some younger people. I'm going to give them opportunities to talk about some things that they're doing. I'm going to allow them a little leeway within their process to lean in on the things they think they do well. Why? Because I want to develop the skills they're going to need for that sales trainer position. And if I can communicate that effectively, they're now going to be excited to say, cool, I'm learning this skill for that future position. Why does this not happen? Well, one, I think the managers are short-sighted. Leaders sometimes are short-sighted, and we only will develop people to the extent that it helps us and our team. It helps us reach our goals. That's number one. Number two is that as a leader, I'm already thinking about my own future so much that I don't have the bandwidth nor the care to think about those on my team's future. So I think we really struggle with aligning the job we have now to the future that we desire and helping develop that. Now, there's a few leaders that are out there that I know that they do a good job of this, that want to help their employee get to the position that they want. But I think that's a personal ethos that they have, that they're out there, they're different. The last thing is give them a better story than the competition. So keep in mind that if you don't answer these three questions, if you don't help them answer these three questions, am I safe here? Do I trust those that are on my team to be honest and vulnerable with them in my organization? And then third, do I have a purpose here? If you don't answer those for them in a positive way that they're going to stay committed and have high performance standards for themselves, you need to know that someone else will. Someone else will. I think of it like a marriage gone wrong, where you're married to someone and you are asked to meet their emotional needs, their physical needs, their basic needs. And if both people aren't, probably similar questions. Am I safe here? Do I trust this person? Is this part of my overall purpose and future? If I'm not answering those questions on a daily basis with my wife, letting her know you are safe here, you can trust me, and we're building a great story together, a great future together, then they're going to start answering those questions with people outside of the marriage. And it starts slow. Do I feel more safe with that person? I really feel like I can trust that person. That person listens. Questioning future. Should my future be with that person? So I think your people, it's the exact same thing. If you don't help them see they're safe within your organization, they'll find an organization that does make them feel safe. If they can't feel like that they trust and they're honest, they can be vulnerable about success and failure, things going on in their world, they'll find an organization and a leader that will allow them to do that. And lastly, if they don't think they have a purpose in your organization, they're going to find an organization that gives them purpose. We have to make sure that we reclaim conversation, pick the moments that we have strategic conversations. I believe using storytelling, it's the best form of communication overall. It's what we already do naturally. We just overcomplicated it. We have to make sure that we are knowing the future of our people so that we can align the goals and the KPIs and the performance to that future. And then lastly, we have to give them a better story within our organization than the one that they are hearing elsewhere. A story that resonates with them, a story that challenges them, a story that makes them excited, a story that's specific and customized to them. We can't just keep telling the same narrative to every single person and expecting them all to be in the same box, because they're not. They're not in the same box. They're different. Each box, like these boxes I have of cards here, each box is different. They may accomplish similar things, but they're different things. Even though these two say the same, they're different colors. They're different colors. This box is completely unique. Every person is unique. Yes, they might be motivated by the same. Oh, Chris, my salespeople are all motivated by money. Awesome. What's the future they want to do with that money? Have you ever asked them what they want to do with that money? What would an extra 20% a year do for them in their world? It all relates back to the future that they have. So, appreciate you listening. Hope this challenges you. I hope when you hear it, you say, okay, I need to make sure that all of the needs of my people in these three areas, are they safe? Can they trust me? And do they feel like they have a purpose here? Are those being met? Me asking myself, where am I having conversations? And when do I need to strategically have a conversation instead of an email? There are many times that a memo should be a meeting and a meeting should be a memo. And we need to make sure that we're being strategic in that. And then lastly, just give them a better story. Give them a better story. Challenge them in that story. Show them the way that you believe in them. And I promise you, your people will set high performance standards for themselves, which in turn equal more engagement and more revenue, more money, a better future for everyone involved. I look forward to seeing you all. We will be back once again every Tuesday, Thursday, 12:30 Central, 1:30 Eastern. I try to put it around a lunchtime for people to tune in. If you watch us on the replay and you're like, man, Chris, I don't know how to communicate those three stories, DM me, send me a message. Love to help you out on that, help your organization out on that, and really think through how are we going to communicate that within our strategic communication within our organization. I will see you guys Thursday. Have a wonderful day.